Do you ever wonder what it's like to walk around every day with 0 F's to give? Same. But I think there's a fine line. Sometimes not giving an F just means you're an a-hole, and that can get pretty tiring. Today on rLounge, we meet the a-holes who don't get tired of it. Up first, a not-so-innocent little old lady. You know the owner? Really? So this isn't as crazy as some of the stories I've read here, but here's my recent experience with an entitled person. Some background information before we get started. My stepsister and her girlfriend rent a house that my boyfriend and I purchased, rehabilitated and remodeled in a college town in central Missouri. They are on the lease with some fellow students at the local college. So, in a 3-bedroom house, there are 5 girls. My boyfriend is over often because he takes care of a lot of the gardening and the tasks that require some heavy lifting. He had warned me that the next door neighbor is a bit nosy and seems to be the old biddy type, despite not being elderly. Just for those keeping track, that is 5 girls and 1 guy that routinely comes over. I haven't really been to the house since we finished it, until this last weekend. Someone has suggested that some small garden boxes along the side of the house would be nice, so they can plant some herbs and maybe some vegetables come springtime. And I am all about that. Since I'm the green thumb of the couple, I went over and built some terraced garden boxes along the side of the house, each about 4 foot by 3 foot, so each bed was about 3.5 foot wide by 3/4 of a foot. Why am I doing this right before winter? Basically so we can make sure that the boxes are draining properly without losing too much soil from the box due to runoff. I'm just finishing up when the old biddy makes her appearance. The conversation starts off rather normal, even though I can tell that she is digging for some gossip to be able to tell the women's group at church. Then she beckons me closer and says,
I know you're just a hired help and are here just to do a job, but do you know what this house is?
No, what is this house?
Well, I don't want to get involved, but I figured I ought to warn a pretty young fang like yourself that this is a brothel,
Karen says, her voice lowered conspiratorially. I asked her what proof she has of this, and she explains that she saw a man here about
a week or so ago.
We collect rent on the 5th, and he was telling the girls that they had to pay him. She then goes on to explain that when he went to leave, my stepsister and her girlfriend both gave him a long hug. I ask her if she has anything else, and she says that she sees a mixture of people coming in and out, mostly men coming and staying for a couple of hours or so before leaving, which really ain't that unusual for 5 college students to have friends and classmates to come over for study groups and or group projects. My mistake is I ended up rolling my eyes and clearly appearing uninterested in listening to her further because she started to huff.
I see you ain't concerned about those girls and their welfare. I bet that pimp has you in on it too. Well, I know the owner of this property and I'm going to call them and report what's going on to them.
This is where I knew I had her, because my boyfriend and I own this place outright, and I don't know her from Eve, and she clearly didn't know my boyfriend from Adam. Go ahead, Karen. Why don't you call them over? I say to her.
Oh, well, they live in St. Louis, and you know what that means.
No, I really don't know what that means. I push, trying to figure out if she innocently just means that it would take the owner too long to get here, or that the owner doesn't care. But St. Louis and or Kansas City have also become a bit of a dog whistle for black in this part of the state, and that is exactly what I think she means by it. Almost confirmed by her stuttering over her words and repeating,
You've got to know what that means.
You shouldn't have said nothing. You are exactly what is wrong with this state. Now I need you to take your bigoted butt back inside and leave us alone. And if I hear about you harassing them that live or work here, I'll have the police here haint like and in a hurry to snatch you right on up. This did have the desired effect of making her go away. What I failed to foresee in my anger was Karen calling the police and claiming that I threatened her. My stepsister came out shortly after Karen went away and was talking to me about her and some of the rude comments that have been sent to her and her girlfriend's way, from
bless your hearts and y'all need Jesus
to
you whores are going to hell.
It was about this time that the police roll up and start asking me questions about what was going on with Karen, as they had gotten a report that someone matching my description had threatened her. So I relate to the officer more or less what happened above. It's at this time my stepsister asks the officer if she can show him something on her phone. The officer says yes, and my stepsister proceeds to show him a video with audio of the conversation, and this lovely 6-foot+ tall police officer that is also African American also picks up on the unspoken meaning of St. Louis owners, and here it is clear that it gets his hackles up. My sister then proceeds to show him videos of Karen's harassment towards her and her girlfriend. He gives a clipped, "Y'all can go inside, don't go far, I'll be right back." Us all being biddies in training immediately gather around the side window that allow us to overlook her front door. He marched up to her door and gave it 3 thudding clubs against it before waiting for Karen to come out. Unfortunately, he did not have the conversation on the porch with her, but I will say this. Even with all of her doors and windows closed, we could hear the officer's raised voice. He came back out 5 minutes later and told us that he had warned her to leave us alone and to stop harassing us. Before leaving, he gave my stepsister his card and said that if she starts up again, to give him a call and he will get us a no-contact order and charge her for harassment. It's been 4 days, and Karen won't as much as look in the direction of anyone in the house. Hopefully, this is the end of it. Edit. Thank you for the awards. Just an old baby boomer says, I hope that racist old biddy keeps her entitled butt on her own property. Kudos to the police officer putting her in her place. If she's dumb enough to start up her crap again, please update me. Thanks. Dumpster Robot says, I'm legitimately out of the loop. What does it mean if the owners were from St. Louis? Please, I'm dying to know what on earth this means. What a small-minded pickle brain. Women like this literally have nothing better to do but gossip. She's so bored with her own dang life that she needs to do dirty crap like this. Good on your sister for recording that encounter. She sounds like a wretched old woman. Update. I had another encounter with old biddy Karen. This happened on Thursday, Thanksgiving for my fellow Americans, aka a day of gluttony that is supposed to be used to reflect on what we are thankful for as we remember the myth of how this country was settled. For the people involved, I have talked about my stepsister, Jules, and her girlfriend, Kara, in my last post, and I briefly mentioned my boyfriend, Jim. I would also like to introduce my business partner, Seamus, and his wife, Piper. As is normal this time of year, many people are getting together for Thanksgiving. Jules and Kira were the only ones in their house. They stated that they wanted to host Thanksgiving. It was a small event with just us 3 couples. Everything is going great, until after the sun goes down and we move from the dinner table to the fire pit in the front yard. The 6 of us are sitting around the fire and just talking. It is mostly Jules and Kira talking to Seamus about the business. I am more focused on the marketing and monetary aspect of the business, while Seamus is the creative mind behind our game. Of course, with Jules and Kira getting excited about the ideas and the conversation also wandering into the accompanying lore novel, the volume of the conversation was getting a little loud. Granted, not illegally loud. Sound ordinance doesn't start until 10 p.m., but loud all the same. This loudness summoned forth the old biddy from her hermitage, with all of the bitterness that no family wanting her presence creates. I will never know what possessed her, or deprived her of her good sense, to come running up from the street with a cane, screeching like a banshee at the 6 of us, but it nearly cost her everything. Old biddy got greeted by the barrels of 5 handguns pointed at her, and the booming voice of my boyfriend telling her to freeze and to not move a freaking muscle. Thankfully, the voice of someone that spent over a decade in the Marines, and likely the sight of so many handguns, did make her stop, but then also turn around and run off back to her home. Yes, we immediately called the sergeant that left his card with us, and we were informed that old biddy was making a call to report us for discharging weapons at her. We informed the sergeant that there were no shots fired, but multiple handguns were brandished as she came charging at us from the darkness with a stick of some kind. Personally, I'm glad shots were not fired, or that there wasn't a real emergency, because it still took the police almost half an hour to arrive. Once the police arrived, it was only 2 units, with a grand total of 4 officers. Old biddy came running out of her house, ranting and raving about how we were shooting at her, and a whole bunch of other lies. The police, of course, got our side of the story, and while not the full security system some have suggested, we do now have a video doorbell that records when it senses motion, so it was basically recording all of us in the front yard, and we showed that to the officer. It was really all the officer needed to see before he walked over to the officer that was taking her statement and informed her that old biddy was being arrested for criminal trespassing and criminal menacing, and needs to add, thankful to not have been legally shot dead on Thanksgiving, to her Thanksgiving list of things to be thankful for. In the nearly week since this happened, I was contacted by the owner of Karen's house, asking for an affidavit of her harassment towards my tenants, as well as her actions on Thanksgiving, so the landlord can move forward with the eviction case. We have upgraded the security system to include motion-activated infrared color security cameras that cover the entire outside and have overlapping fields of view, but notified that Karen was unable to make bail and is currently being detained until at least her arraignment. The community has some reactions. PanPan90 says, clearly her landlord's been dealing with her crap long enough that this is finally their way out. I'm willing to bet she'll go nuts again within a short amount of time of being served her notice to vacate the property. The OP replies, one thing I have to give this state, before notice can be served, you have to give the tenant at least 7 days notice of the court date. Then, you and the tenant can go before the court and plead your case to the judge, and the judge will either order you to basically back off, grant eviction, or offer a remedy to be completed in lieu of eviction. I'm pretty sure that she will be served while still in holding. I wouldn't want to be a guard on that block that night. John N. Denver adds, Your remark about the cops taking a half hour to get there reminds me of a story, probably not true, but who knows. Guy calls cops reporting that someone is breaking into his shed or something. 911 says someone will be there in an hour. Guy is upset it will take them that long. A little while later calls back and says, "Take your time, I shot the guy." Cop shows up in 2 minutes and arrests the guy that was breaking into the shed. Cops, "You said you shot the guy." Guy, "You said it would take half an hour for someone to get here." Amber's Love says, "It's hilarious to me that people want to criticize 5 adults pulling guns on a harmless little old lady. Hindsight is a fabulous thing, and I'm sure they all had a good laugh that it ended up being a harmless old lady. But I guarantee in those first few moments, they had no idea who or what was screaming and running toward them with a large bat-like object. They didn't shoot because at some point, probably milliseconds after they drew their weapons, they recognized the lady and told her to stop. The crazy lady stopped because probably at the same exact moment, she realized they all had guns. This was a best-case scenario. Nobody shot blindly at the noise, and the Karen thought better of her assault plan. She literally couldn't help herself. Dug her own grave. Well, this was exactly what needed to happen for her own landlord to get rid of her. What a joke. And literally so idiotic to run up on people in the dark. She actually could have been killed if it were different people. Take solace in the fact that she's not just a prick to you and your tenants, but to everyone she interacts with. Bye, witch. Tell us your similar stories below. Next, it's important to be kind, as we never know what others are going through. Karen wants me to miss my bus to make her nails. Today I had an appointment with my gynecologist because of a lump inside my breast. It's something important, and I have been waiting 3 months. I was waiting for the bus, and when it arrived there were not enough seats for everyone, so the driver said only 7 persons could join and the others should wait for the next bus, half an hour. I was the number 6, but an old man behind me gave his spot, the last one, to a girl who asked politely, or she would miss her college test. A Karen saw this and came to me, the next in line, when it was nearly my turn to go in and pay, and said, "So?" I answered, "So what?" Turns out she was expecting me to give my spot to her. I said no. I explained that I can't be late to my doctor, but she said, "I have an appointment for my nails, and this salon is nearly always full. You know, it's a really fancy one. Many celebrities go there, so I can't lose this opportunity. You can book another appointment for your doctor." I didn't bother answering and just went in. She called me a witch, and that's it. Update. 3 things. Thanks for people that asked about the lump. I'm 95% sure it's nothing to worry about. I will get a test done on 12th of December, a breast ultrasound. They say I'm too young for a mammography. Someone asked me to update when I have the results. I will try. It will take some months to have the results and see the gynecologist again. I was on a small village bus. There aren't handlers, or however that is called in English, and everyone has to take a seat and put a belt on. In big cities, there are the typical big buses where people stand, of course, but not this one. At least 2 persons asked me why I went to a gynecologist for my breast. One even called me a troll. In my country, Spain, on the annual revision, I made it too. The gynecologist touches and looks at your breasts too. Someone said in the UK they would fire the doctor in that case. For who said I'm a troll, I will paste this definition that I found on internet in English. What is an annual gynecologist exam? Whatever your age, an annual gyne exam includes an assessment of your current health status, a breast exam to check for lumps, skin changes, or nipple discharge, a pelvic exam to check your vulva, vagina, cervix, uterus, rectum, and pelvis, including your ovaries, for masses, growths, or other abnormalities. There you go. Now you know that in some countries things are different, and you shouldn't judge so fast. Yugi from the community says, "Yeah, flashy nails are more important than someone's health. Get your priorities straight, Karen." OP, you were totally in the right. She wanted to get on the bus. She should have been there sooner. Oh well, some people never learn. Angie chimes in, "If it's so fancy, then why can't she afford a car or cab there instead of taking the bus?" Professional Finger 76 says, "What country do you live?" "Where I am in Canada, the public buses take on as many as the bus will hold. Always people standing. Sometimes the buses are so full you cannot get on, but always more people than there are seats." Oh God, this is totally not what you need while you're on your way to such an appointment. I'm sorry, OP. Hopefully everything turned out okay. I wish people were nicer to those they meet and come across every day. This is just a fine example that we actually have no idea what people are going through, and we aren't any more important than the next soul. I'm glad you just walked right in. What a delusional, self-centered fool. Have you experienced a similar encounter? Let us know below. And lastly, some people just need a reminder that they're dumber than the average Joe. Old man parks his car in the middle of the road. Somehow, I'm at fault? Something bizarre just happened to me yesterday. I was pulling into the parking lot when the car in front of me suddenly came to a complete stop in the middle of the lane. Its owner, an older white man, turned it off, got out, and started walking into the nearest store in a strip mall. He just parked his car in the middle of the lane. I could have gotten around it if I really tried, but it'd be dangerously close to either his car or other parked cars. I lightly tapped my horn twice at him, seeing as how I was essentially stuck now. He turned around, and I rolled my window down and said to him, "That's not a parking space." He dramatically pointed at my car, then did this right this way motion with both hands, sort of aiming at the very narrow path that I guess he thought I should be able to get through. I repeated myself again, "Sir, that's not a parking space. I can't get around you."
Why is it that one of you people every time just go around?
So he's done this before? Sir, what are you doing? That's not a parking space. I need you to move.
I need you to mind your own business.
Come on, you can't park there. Please just move your car. At this point, his lips were doing that weird shake that old people do when they hang their mouths open. I guess he thought he was being intimidating. He stepped up to my window and yelled,
"You want to make me?"
Okay, so he's done this before, and he's being an aggressive jerk? Now I've read on here where other people have interacted with older Karens, and there's apparently a card that you can play that bypasses this sort of attitude. Sir, are you okay? Do you know where you are?
What?
Are you with someone? Is there someone who's supposed to be helping you today?
What are you?
Do you need help? It sounds like you don't know where you are, and I'm worried about you. Is there anyone I can call for you to help you? I think he caught on to me at this point because he switched back from confused to being angry again.
I don't know. Is there anyone I can call for you?
Is that somehow a threat? I don't know. Sir, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. You just stay right there, and I'll call someone who can come and help you. Don't worry. It'll be okay. Just don't move, and I'll call for an ambulance. At this point, I backed into a parking space that had opened behind me and pulled out my phone. I really was going to call 911, but only because he was too confrontational to be left unattended in public. Of course, as with most bullies, the moment they realize they don't have power over you, he gave up, muttering something, got back in his car, and left. On my way out of the lot, I saw that he had miraculously found his way into a parking spot on the other side of the lot. Vegetable Shock from the community says, "That was a brilliant response. The only thing my older Karen-esque relatives hate more than having no reason to complain and young people these days is someone daring to say they are not of sound mind. I regularly piss off my father-in-law by jokingly referencing the Mini Mental State Examination, MMSE. That, and leaving out pamphlets about the dangers of lead poisoning. Hopefully it sinks into this man that he needs to legally park his vehicle, or he might be taking the MMSE in order to be cleared to drive. You did good work, OP." Sweet Nightmare 89 says, "I appreciate your assertive attitude." John N. Denver thinks, "If he does this regularly, you would think someone would tow his car. And then, of course, give him a driver's test again." What the heck? What the hell actually goes through people's minds? Do they legit just don't care? Some days I wish I literally didn't give two Fs. But then, where's human decency? That's incredibly frustrating, OP. But the way you handled this is hilarious. Basically calling him an idiot without outright saying it. Way to go. Brilliance. What would you have done? How do you handle this level of stupidity? And thank you for joining us today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, share that with us in the comments below.